Welcome to the Global WarWatch Network. NATO warships are now patrolling the Arctic. Why? You've got Dutch, Norwegian, Portuguese, and German vessels way up in the high north. Is this just a show of force, or is it maybe a sign of rising tensions near Russia's doorstep? Let's get into it. Today, we're unpacking a really complex and, well, increasingly critical arena, the Arctic. The sources we've looked at, they paint a pretty vivid picture of a region that's heating up, and not just environmentally, but geopolitically, too. We've got detailed timelines, reports from organizations like the Center for European Policy Analysis, insights from defense correspondents. Our mission today is really to sift through all this information, try to connect the dots, and help you understand what's truly at stake in the high north. The Arctic, a region of growing strategic importance. So let's maybe start by setting the scene a bit. I mean, for decades, right, the Arctic was largely seen as this remote, icy frontier, a place for, science, maybe some extreme survival stuff, but not really a focal point for global power. Yet our sources, they consistently highlight its escalating strategic importance. It feels like this distant realm is rapidly becoming a central stage. What's really changed to bring it into such sharp focus?
That's the key question, isn't it? And the answer, it's kind of multi-layered, but probably the most immediate driver is environmental. I mean, the Arctic Circle, the high north, they are undeniably melting. And this isn't just an ecological issue, it's a geopolitical game changer. As that ice recedes, it's opening up new shipping routes, what we call critical sea lines of communication, or SLOCs.
That's LOCs, really.
Exactly. Think about the Northern Sea Route, running along Russia's Arctic coast, or the Northwest Passage through Canada's islands. These routes, they were mostly impassable for a lot of the year, but now they're becoming, well, increasingly navigable. A trip through the Northern Sea Route, for instance, it can cut weeks off a journey between Europe and Asia compared to using the Suez Canal. That's a huge economic advantage.
Yeah, huge. And it's not just about the potential for these quicker routes, is it? It seems like it's profoundly about who gets access, who can control them, and what that means for, well, the global power balance. Because when you have these pathways that can drastically cut transit times for cargo, the economic leverage is massive. But it also creates these unprecedented challenges, right? Navigating shifting ice, maybe shallower waters.
Absolutely.
And just the logistics, needing special ice-hardened ships, search and rescue in that kind of environment.
Yeah.
It sounds incredibly demanding.
Exactly. And ensuring freedom of navigation in these emerging routes, that's a core principle of international maritime law, the right for any ship to travel freely on the high seas. But it's a principle that's getting more contested. As more nations look to exert influence, make claims over resources, maybe even military passage, for the 8 Arctic nations, Canada, Denmark, via Greenland, Finland, Iceland, Norway, Russia, Sweden, and the U.S., their security, their economy, it's now directly tied to what happens up there. So any perceived threat, any big shift in activity, it really resonates with their national interests. The stakes are just incredibly high because these aren't just lines on a map. They're tangible economic and strategic lifelines and, a new frontier for resources.
And speaking of those Arctic nations, our sources really emphasize that NATO, as an alliance, has a significant sort of inherent interest here. It's not just a passing thing. It's baked into its geography, its mission. How does NATO's structure make it such a central player?
That's a really crucial point. NATO's stake in the Arctic isn't some recent strategic decision. It's inherent to its collective defense role. 7 NATO countries have territory inside the Arctic Circle. You've got Denmark through Greenland, Canada, the U.S., Norway, and now Sweden and Finland too, plus Iceland.
Right. With Finland and Sweden joining, that's a big shift.
A huge shift. So this massive geographical footprint means NATO isn't just watching. It's a direct, permanent stakeholder in the region. Their presence isn't new. It's rooted in their basic defense interests because so much of their collective territory is in or borders the Arctic. So any perceived threat, any big change up there, it directly impacts the alliance's security framework. It forces them to act to protect members' territory and interests. It's really a core responsibility woven into the alliance's whole defensive posture, especially, as Russia keeps building up its military presence along its Arctic coast. 2, NATO's recent deployment. Standing NATO Maritime Group 1 in the high north.
Okay, so with that inherent interest clear, let's look at what NATO's actually doing right now, the actions that have, well, got people talking. Our sources detail a pretty significant deployment by NATO's Standing Maritime Group 1, SNMG-1. This wasn't just a quiet patrol, it was a multinational presence, really underscoring NATO's focus on the high north.
That's right. This deployment, it was confirmed late July, early August 2025, And it involved a pretty formidable multinational task group, a powerful fleet, really, showing that collective strength. The key ships involved were the HNLMS De Ruyter from the Netherlands, that was the flagship,
Okay.
alongside the HNOMS Thor Heyerdahl from Norway, the NRP Bartolomeu Dias from Portugal, and the FGS Rhone from Germany.
A real mix.
Yeah, a proper multinational effort. And these ships, they weren't alone. Their activities were backed up by maritime patrol aircraft, things like the P-3 Orion or maybe the newer P-8 Poseidon. So you had this comprehensive air and sea presence. And they were operating specifically in waters off northern Norway, but also extending into the wider high north regions, essentially conducting, strategic reconnaissance and readiness exercises in a really sensitive area.
That is an impressive collection of naval assets from different allies.
Yeah.
So what are their stated goals for being there, especially in such a touchy region? Commander Arlo Abramson, the spokesperson for NATO's Allied Maritime Command, he gave some insights to Defense News, didn't he?
He did. Commander Abramson emphasized that the deployment is fundamentally about boosting NATO's maritime presence and enhancing security across the Arctic and High North. More specifically, the task group is doing several things. First, and this is crucial, they're focused on anti-submarine activities.
ASW.
ASW in the Arctic, that must be incredibly difficult.
Extremely difficult. It's not just about listening. It's trying to pick out a submarine's faint sound signature amidst all the noise of shifting ice, marine life, storms. It needs really advanced sonar, maybe unmanned underwater vehicles, UUVs that can operate on their own for long periods, plus sophisticated analysis to filter the signal from the noise.
Wow.
It's a high-tech cat-and-mouse game in one of the toughest acoustic environments on Earth.
Okay, so ASW is key. What else?
Second, they're actively ensuring freedom of navigation. That core principle, especially important as these new routes open up. Third, just routine patrols, maintaining that visible, consistent presence. And fourth, they're engaged in integrated operations. That means coordinating the ships and the aircraft really tightly.
To achieve what, exactly? Well, several goals there. To increase their collective understanding of this unique Arctic maritime environment, to enhance vital information sharing between the Allied forces, and also to rigorously rehearse navigational maneuvers in those challenging, unpredictable polar conditions. It's a really comprehensive approach, covering immediate security, but also long-term readiness.
So it sounds like it's much more than just, a visible show of force or flexing muscles, as some might say. It's also deeply about learning, adapting, building that long-term capability in this unique and, well, increasingly accessible place. The focus on understanding and rehearsing, it suggests looking beyond just immediate tensions. It feels like a real investment in future ops.
Precisely. Commander Abramson explicitly said these operations provide valuable opportunities for NATO forces to enhance their knowledge of polar regions and, crucially, improve their ability to sustain operations there. This isn't just a one-off exercise. It's about building enduring, long-term capability in a region that's rapidly becoming more accessible, more strategic, and, more contested. The training, the knowledge they gain now, it's foundational for any future operations, making sure NATO can maintain a credible, effective presence as the Arctic keeps changing.
It's like investing in future security, making sure they can operate way up there, far from home bases.
Exactly. Operating effectively in extreme conditions, far from traditional logistics support, that's a capability you have to build in practice. 3. The Russian July storm exercise, a proximity of power displays.
Now, you really can't talk about NATO's recent moves without considering what else was happening almost at the same time. Russia's own massive naval display called July Storm.
Yeah.
The scale described in our sources for this exercise, it's pretty staggering, almost unprecedented, it seems.
Oh, July Storm was a truly significant display of Russian military power. It took place July 23rd to 27th, 2025. And reportedly involved, get this, 150 warships and 15,000 military personnel.
150 warships. That's incredible.
It really is. I mean, try to picture an armada including everything from nuclear subs to advanced destroyers, long-range bombers simulating attacks, specialized spy ships, the works. And what's particularly notable is the sheer geographic scope. It wasn't just in one place. It spanned the Pacific, the Arctic, the Baltic, and the Caspian Seas. All at once.
Wow, across multiple theaters simultaneously.
Yeah, showcasing their ability to project naval power across vastly different strategic areas at the same time. It highlights their global reach, their coordinated command. It wasn't just a local drill, it was a synchronized demonstration, a loud statement about their military intent and logistical capability.
So the scale is massive. But what about the timing? NATO's deployment happens just as Russia wraps up this huge display. how do our sources interpret that proximity? Is it just a coincidence, busy summer, or is there something more deliberate, like a geopolitical chess move?
Well, the sources suggest it could be read a couple of ways. Maybe strategic planning on both sides, maybe some reactive signaling. While NATO's operations might well have been planned in advance, their confirmation and the reporting of their timing just days after July storm ended, it definitely highlights the high level of military activity and, yeah, the heightened tensions in the Arctic and nearby regions.
It's quite a juxtaposition, isn't it? Almost feels like tit for tat.
It does point to that delicate, complex dance of perceived threats and counter responses, where each side's actions are watched closely and can be seen as a signal to the other. Elizabeth Gosselin Mallow at Defense News, who wrote the article on the NATO deployment, she places these events right next to each other, sort of underscoring that interrelationship.
So she's drawing a clear line between them.
Yeah, it suggests a connection in the geopolitical narrative. Whether it was a direct response or just coincided critically, the optics are definitely about responsive vigilance. The message seems clear. The Arctic isn't a vacuum. Any move is going to be noticed and likely met with a counterpresence. 4. The Arctic rapprochement between China and Russia.
Okay, so we have these immediate military maneuvers painting a picture of rising tension. But our sources also dig into something deeper, a more profound strategic shift brewing for years. What experts are calling the Arctic rapprochement between China and Russia. This sounds like more than just two countries cooperating on minor projects. It seems to have really big long-term implications for global power dynamics, potentially reshaping the whole strategic landscape up there.
Yeah, this rapprochement is definitely a significant development. And the evidence goes beyond just diplomatic nice words or occasional joint statements. We're seeing organized joint military drills near the Arctic region. That shows a deepening level of operational coordination, shared strategic goals. For instance, joint naval and air patrols over sensitive areas like the East China Sea and the Sea of Japan. Those are becoming pretty routine now, showcasing a growing level of interoperability between their forces.
So it's sustained collaboration, not just one-offs.
Exactly. It indicates a deepening strategic partnership that now explicitly includes the Arctic, creating this formidable alignment of interests and capabilities in a region that used to be seen as mostly the domain of the Arctic Council nations, which are mostly Western aligned.
Right.
This feels less like a temporary alliance and more like a growing foundational shift in the global power balance, especially concerning the Arctic.
So what does this actually mean for NATO and for broader Western interests in the Arctic? Does this partnership present a fundamentally new kind of challenge, moving beyond just dealing with Russia? Now it's Russia and China. It adds a whole new layer of complexity, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. NATO views this growing collaboration as a direct and evolving challenge to its security interests and the sort of established order in the region. Traditionally, the Arctic was a place where Arctic Council countries, many of them NATO members, managed to maintain some cooperation, especially on science and environment, even with underlying tensions. This Russia-China alignment introduces a completely new dynamic, one that could foster a much more confrontational environment where their shared interests directly undermine Western security and strategic advantages.
How so? What are those shared interests?
Well, it's not just a military thing. It's a long-term economic and strategic marriage, in a way. Russia offers the geographic access, the vast northern sea route, though it's challenging to use. China brings the capital, the technology, the industrial might to actually develop it.
Oh, okay, so they complement each other.
Precisely. Together, they seem to envision an Arctic less dominated by the West. Maybe establishing new norms for resource extraction, for navigation, that could potentially challenge established international law. It basically forces NATO to rethink its long-term strategy, not just reacting to Russian drills, but confronting a more systemic dual-power challenge. Their cooperation enhances their combined ability to project power and contest Western influence in critical areas. It really creates a multipolar dynamic in a region that was historically dominated by fewer players. The alarming threat to critical undersea infrastructure, CUI.
Okay, moving on to one of the most specific and, frankly, pretty alarming concerns raised in our sources, particularly by the Center for European Policy Analysis, CEPA. It's this idea of a shared willingness between Russia and China to disrupt critical undersea infrastructure, or CUI. I mean, it sounds like something from a spy movie, right? Shadowy plots to cripple nations?
Yeah.
But it's presented here as a very real, tangible threat that needs urgent attention.
It is indeed very real and deeply concerning, partly because it operates largely unseen in the shadows. CUI refers to essential infrastructure on, or usually deep under, the seabed. Think about the submarine communication cables carrying almost all global internet traffic. Something like 99% of international data emails, financial transactions, military comms, everything.
99%.
Yeah. It also includes vital oil and gas pipelines, like those supplying Europe, and even power cables connecting national grids. Disrupting any of these, as SEPA warns quite starkly, could have truly severe economic and strategic consequences globally, not just for the immediate target.
It's a vulnerability that, if exploited, I mean, it could cause widespread chaos, economic collapse, potentially bring nations to their knees without firing a shot.
Yeah, exactly. That's the fear.
And the sources say Russia and China have a clear interest in disrupting these assets. That is a chilling statement. How would this actually play out? Is it about, like, visible sabotage, cutting cables?
Right.
Or is it something more subtle, more insidious? And why the Arctic specifically?
Well, SEPA's report is pretty explicit. It talks about disruption of CUI and engaging in seabed warfare activities as representing nefarious relations that Russia and China might pursue further in the Arctic. They see this as part of what are called sub-threshold operations against the West.
Sub-threshold operations. What does that mean exactly?
It's key. These are actions designed to fall below the traditional threshold of armed conflict. The goal is to achieve significant strategic aims, crippling an economy, disrupting military command, isolating people without triggering a full conventional military response or a declaration of war.
So, operating in the gray zone.
Precisely. It's a gray zone conflict, clandestine warfare where the lines are deliberately blurred, and a huge challenge here is attribution.
Proving who did it.
Exactly. Proving who did it, getting international agreement to respond, all while your critical infrastructure is under silent attack. Such actions could severely hit Western economic stability, military readiness, communications, without a single shot fired in open warfare. And the Arctic, with its vast, remote, increasingly accessible seabed, well, it provides ample cover and opportunity for these kinds of covert activities, making it an ideal, though dangerous, theater for this type of competition.
Okay, so putting this together, NATO's anti-submarine activities we talked about earlier, they're not just about traditional naval defense against enemy subs in open combat. They're also directly aimed at protecting these vital, invisible undersea arteries from this very specific, clandestine, potentially devastating threat. It adds a whole new dimension to naval strategy, focusing on infrastructure protection.
Precisely. Protecting those critical sea lines, and by extension, preventing CUI disruption, is absolutely a primary goal of NATO's current deployment. It shows they clearly recognize this emerging, insidious form of warfare. It's a strategic adaptation to a threat that isn't about surface battles, but about undermining the very foundations of our interconnected world. Having those ASW assets in the high north sends a clear message. NATO is preparing for and defending against this quiet yet potentially catastrophic form of aggression. It really underscores the urgency they feel about the multifaceted challenges in the Arctic, extending their defense down to the ocean floor, enhancing NATO's Arctic capabilities and understanding for future operations.
Right, so this brings us back to NATO's bigger picture goals in the Arctic.
Mm-hmm.
Beyond the immediate responses to drills and these emerging threats like CUI, our sources point to a strong forward-looking focus on long-term capability building, on enhancing knowledge. It seems to be about getting ready for what the Arctic will become, not just reacting to today. A strategic adaptation to a rapidly changing world.
Yes, absolutely. Commander Arlo Abramson, the Markham spokesperson, really stressed that these deployments offer valuable opportunities for NATO forces. Opportunities to enhance their knowledge of polar regions and, crucially, to significantly improve their ability to sustain operations in these waters. So like you said, it's not just a short-term show of force, a temporary visit. It represents a serious, calculated investment in enduring operational readiness. It's about building a robust, long-term capacity to operate effectively in one of the world's most challenging and strategically vital environments. This commitment to sustained presence and understanding, it signals a fundamental shift in NATO's strategic outlook for the High North, recognizing it as a permanent active theater.
How are they actually achieving that enhanced understanding? Because the Arctic is notoriously tough to operate in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Extreme weather, dynamic ice, vast remote areas. What specific activities are contributing to this deeper knowledge and operational resilience that Abramson mentioned?
They're doing it through several key activities, all integrated into their ongoing operations. Firstly, a relentless focus on understanding the maritime environment itself. The Arctic is unique. You've got specific, unpredictable ice conditions, thick, multi-year ice, huge fields of broken flows, rapidly changing weather, blizzards appearing out of nowhere, complex hydrography.
You mean the underwater landscape?
Yeah, accurate mapping of the seabed, water depth bathymetry. It's vital for safe navigation, especially for submarines. And large parts of the Arctic are still poorly charted. Understanding all that is paramount. Secondly, they're enhancing information sharing among all the participating forces. This collaboration between different national units is absolutely crucial for building a comprehensive, real-time picture of the environment, spotting threats, understanding challenges.
So everyone sees the same picture.
Ideally, yes. Seamless information exchange, satellite imagery, sensor data, maybe even AI analysis of ice movements is vital for coordinated action. And thirdly, they are rigorously rehearsing navigational maneuvers, practicing complex moves in those unique polar conditions. That's vital for improving operational safety, navigating through ice, using new passages safely, and just boosting overall mission effectiveness. Especially as more routes open up and potentially become contested, these practical, hands-on experiences build institutional knowledge you just can't get from simulations.
So this really suggests a profound strategic adaptation. The Arctic isn't seen as that frozen edge of the world anymore. Instead, it's clearly emerging as a central arena for geopolitical competition, requiring a new level of military readiness, specialized skills, and that enduring presence you mentioned.
Exactly. Through all these combined efforts, integrated operations, environmental study, information sharing, tough rehearsals, NATO isn't just boosting its current presence. It's significantly improving its fundamental expertise and long-term operational readiness. It's a comprehensive approach, aimed at establishing a robust, sustainable capability to operate effectively and maintain stability in what's undeniably a strategically vital and increasingly complex region. This proactive stance means NATO isn't just reacting. It's trying to strategically position itself to shape the Arctic's future security landscape, building a permanent, sophisticated base of knowledge and capability in one of the world's toughest yet most critical environments.
A mysterious geopolitical chessboard.
So what we've discussed today, it really paints this vivid, compelling picture of the Arctic as a kind of mysterious, high-stakes geopolitical chessboard. You've got this simultaneous dramatic increase in military activity from major powers. You've got the deepening strategic link-up between Russia and China, and then this really alarming prospect of attacks on critical undersea infrastructure. The ice might be melting, but geopolitically, things are definitely heating up, creating this new, often unseen front in global competition.
Indeed. And NATO's deployment of Standing NATO Maritime Group 1 coming right after Russia's huge July storm drill. It isn't just routine. It's not mere coincidence. It's a clear, unmistakable signal of heightened awareness, of proactive measures being taken in a region undergoing these profound environmental and strategic shifts. And the focus on these subthreshold operations, the specific worries about critical undersea infrastructure, that reveals a new, really intricate dimension to modern geopolitical competition. One that's far removed from traditional armed conflict, but potentially just as devastating. Targeting those invisible veins of global connectivity and commerce, provocative thought. As the ice continues to melt and access to the Arctic just keeps expanding, this region might actually become the crucible where future international norms get redefined. Norms about sovereignty, about resource access, maybe even about the very nature of warfare itself. Just consider the implications if established principles like freedom of navigation are fundamentally challenged. Or if a silent attack on critical infrastructure happens and maybe goes unpunished because it's hard to prove who did it.
How is the global community going to navigate this really delicate, dangerous balance between cooperation, competition, and potential conflict, especially in a region that's simultaneously vital for global environmental stability and for strategic power projection? It's a huge question, one that really demands our attention. Because the future of the Arctic, it feels inextricably linked to the future of global security and maybe even how we define peace itself.
Well, thank you for joining us for this exploration of the Arctic's shifting power dynamics. Your time and participation are, as always, invaluable as we try to make sense of these complex global shifts together. If you found this discussion insightful, please do remember to like, share, and subscribe to the Global WarWatch Network. Your support really helps us continue to bring you these critical analyses. And we also invite you to share your thoughts down in the comment section below. What stood out to you? What questions does this raise for you? And be sure to join us on social media. All the links are provided in the description. Until next time, stay informed.